that day you came back to Dublin.
I know. Well, he was trained or something.
They say they can't stop the heat here anymore, so they just go slow.
Singing the slow.
It's just not for the kids. But the kids down there. It's right next to that brick building on the corner.
Now that used to be a theater where that used to go all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, right next to it, there was a three-story clapboard-sided building. The Masonic Lodge had a,
We have a picture of that in the museum.
man, we have several of it, and that's
But
why
there's
people
no
have asked.
dates on them?
No dates on them. And I didn't know if, it was torn down in the early part of this century or latter part of the 19th. Anybody have any ideas on what happened to that building? It was brought up, yet
Neil McCoy, I bet you would know.
you might know.
I know,
Yeah, he would.
I know when my father came to
In the
town,
90s, and he's
he
very
first
strong.
started the drugstore in the small building beside the bank, what would be the bank there now. And then he stayed there until the drugstore where it is now was built. Could that be the building?
No, I don't.
That is the building?
I meant to bring one of the photographs along.
Oh, I don't
Sure.
know.
This building had something that was like Masonic at one time.
Mhm. Yeah, well,
By the auto bar.
that's the
I
present
can't figure out
Masonic
where it
building.
is.
Oh, okay.
And they built that.
Well,
That
it's
also.
where Dolly's Pizza.
Yeah, it's where Dolly's Pizza
Oh, that was
is
the
being that
jewelry store?
block
No,
of
no,
stores
no,
now.
it was the Masonic Lodge.
The reason that I ask is supposedly, now we've heard from the Medina County Historical Society that supposedly that was the first three-story building in Medina County. And they had inquired once, I don't know which group up there had been doing architecture, but they had wondered about when it was put up and when it was taken down. The other thing that people ask about is the gazebo that was down because of the anniversary. People are starting to ask when the gazebo in the park was taken out where the library is now. Now, was that taken out when the library was built? Or
Before that. I'm thinking about 30s. In about the 30s. Because they had the picture show there for 4 or 5 years.
They had celebrations there in the gazebo.
So they had a,
Because the band played in front of it.
Yeah, I've got a picture of that. Early 30s.
Yeah, early 30s.
so it was taken out in the 30s.
Early 30s.
And
Before the fire?
there was never a structure then until a library was built on it.
Well, they had these benches there for these picture shows, but, and they stayed there, from all summer.
Well, like the park bench we have at the museum
Right.
that we got?
No,
No.
these were long wooden benches. They
Yeah.
were long. They were about as long as this table. And then they just disbanded.
I think they were even painted green, if I'm not mistaken. Green or dark brown.
I have part of one of those benches. When they were disposing of them, I think Paul Sweater had something to do with it. And I asked him about it, and paper delivered it to my house. I got one.
Well, I did have until I moved. I got rid of a lot
I
of
used to
stuff.
every summer out the backyard.
Huh?
Um,
movies?
Huh?
You show movies out there?
Now, right across from us was at one time the stable over there, livery. And again, we have a photograph of that, and so many people come through and they wonder about that building, and that evidently had a balcony and apartments up above it, or rooms
Fred
above it or
Taylor's on
something.
that.
Taylor's livery over there. Does anybody know when that was removed?
Well, when Floyd Allen built the built the filling station.
Okay. And now, the station's always looked like it has,
Oh,
no
yes.
idea hasn't changed that at all. Now, here's one for Dr. Wolf over there. Doctor, your building at one time, your office building, what was that originally? Was that, do you have any idea?
Yes, I have a little idea. Part of the, which the last before the remodel, was the back end of the building that we lived in or used. Stood way out by the street. Katie knows that.
Yes, I gave you a picture of that.
That's, I still have it. And it shows the horses tied up at the side there, and that was the doctor's office. And I think the 3 Dr. Beaches, each one put a part of it on. And that's how it got to the status before they remodeled here a year or so ago. And then it was pushed back. I think a basement was put under it. And the Dr. Beach that I went in with, I know put the final addition, they put the fireplace in, had a nice large waiting room. And the upstairs was used for post-surgery cases. He used to do tonsils and things like that before I got to town. But when I came to town, we didn't like to do things like that. We thought it was a little dangerous, so we stopped using it for that purpose. But the building gradually grew through the generation of the Beaches.
But it was always used for a doctor's office?
Yes, it started out that way.
Do you know when it was moved back from the road?
I can't tell you. It might be in that picture. If I look, I don't know.
I don't think it was in that picture, but I remember myself of seeing that out to the sidewalk with a big porch in front.
I remember
The
that.
porch.
I have a picture of my sister on the porch.
Your sister,
She was the nurse
uh-huh.
when Dr. Beach was
Ellen.
Is that what the doctor's office is now?
Yes.
Waking up, kind of, their extra Eloise quit.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, but that was later.
Yeah. But Eloise was.
I think it was there for quite a while.
Yeah.
Buildings where the present bank is located, and Old Phoenix Bank that's there now. Evidently, there were a couple of buildings in between Dr. Wolf's old offices and that. Evidently, there was a restaurant in there, or a bakery,
Well, now,
or
it started out originally as a congregational church. And that wasn't where the bank was. That was where the bank parking lot was. There was a congregational church. And then the school used it for just a small time. And then Mrs. George Carter owned it, and her husband owned where the livery was from Fred Taylor. Am I right? From Fred Taylor. And she lived there. Now she's dead and gone. And there was a dentist office in one part of it. There was a little eating place in one part of it. And there was apartments.
Telephone office?
No, that was where the bank took that over.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the telephone office at one time was up above Hartman's,
Yeah, years ago or something like that.
up above the drugstore.
well, we can attest to that because Janet at one point rented the apartment up above there, and the wiring for the phone service is still up there. They left all the wiring, they just took the switchboard out and left all these lines up in the attic, and through the one closet, there they all are. They were never removed. The triangle, which is in front of, between Blair's and Swagler's now, someone had mentioned that they thought there was a building on that triangle, and somebody else in the museum was arguing, no, that was a city park. It was put
It was
aside
called
as a city
Freeman
park.
Park, wasn't it? Freeman Park?
Always a park.
Now, was Freeman the name of a person, or?
Yes, I think it was.
Yeah,
Freeman.
right.
Ed Freeman, well, was it Ed Freeman that,
Probably his parents.
oh, I mean, I don't know,
You know,
but it was Freeman's car.
I think there was a building there when I come down.
Before that?
And they tore that down,
You mean before they owned it?
because they tore that down before that sesquicentennial, right,
Oh,
back before that. And they cleaned that all up for that.
Oh, you should.
I don't know why, but I just feel there wasn't nothing.
Kirchhoffer was where that,
In the Carter.
bank, yeah, in the Carter.
Carter building.
Yeah, in the Carter building. He died
Leave me alone.
Well, I heard you talking, since we're just new and one's in town, about where your doctor's office was, and the people tied the horses outside.
Yes?
Were the horses waiting to be doctored on, or was
Before, I think before my time, the doctor did both. There was a stable back of our place too. I purchased that property from the Baptist church. Isn't that correct, Betty? And that's where they used to put their horses in the wagons, right behind the office where it stands now. And so I purchased that in my time. Mrs. Bauer had a garden in Lincoln afterwards. Yes.
I have been told that, and people here know these homes by the names of the owners, and I can't keep up with them. The home right next to Chippewa Creek, which would be on the, well, as you're going south side of town, thank you. Geography teacher losing his bearings here. That has like the turret. Someone had told me that that was used as a ballroom at one time. That home was used as a ballroom, is that correct? Anybody know anything about that?
It's Madison's house.
No.
Is that what you're talking about? Well, it was Cliff Madison's before Mary's.
That's what.
No, Edith Madison.
We're talking about from Bob.
Edith Madison.
On Center Street?
Right,
Oh,
right on
Edith,
Center
Edith.
Street. It had
Yeah,
the
Matheny's
turret.
live now.
Yeah, Matheny's home.
Oh,
Was that,
well,
used
Stokes,
as-
Edith Madison, and William the Stokes.
Stokes children, Irene and.
Yeah.
Right. And
But I never knew
that's
that
always,
then.
that's always been a home?
No, I didn't either.
Well, Edith Madison.
I didn't get that.
Oh, she's an aunt.
Was the big family lived there then in such a large house?
Well, no, but, an aunt raised quite a few children from, that, didn't have parents.
Well, one little bit of information, I'll help Don out. If any of you are downtown tomorrow, and want to pick up one of them old brick souvenirs they're putting out here, they're free to pick up. Was the street always had a brick street, or it had a brick street? Must be, because they're pulling them bricks up, throwing them all over the place down here.
You're supposed to be taking us home for a patio.
Forget it.
I want that, no.
Yeah, he's still
I'll go down in the morning, look at the truck.
We have photographs at the museum that shows Center Street and Main both as a dirt street and as brick. We have photographs that show it both ways. Now, I don't know when they put in the brick for that street. I don't remember from any of the histories that they even mentioned
Now,
it.
I know East Main was brick 1920.
But was West Main brick also?
I don't know about West Main.
She never got up that far.
You're on the tracks.
I lived in the country.
That's on the other side of the tracks.
They wouldn't even let her on that side of town. Be an idea for the city. So if anybody has any pull or wants to make a suggestion to anybody in town, that might be something that they might want to consider. That's bad out there. Yeah,
They said used to be a rest home.
Oh, yes,
Was that a tea room at one time?
yes, yes.
Was it a tea room at first, or
No.
which came first?
Well,
Chicken or the-
it was a home before it was a tea room. They had apartments and it was a home. And then, yeah, had a tea room there. And then it was a restroom. And,
Now it's a house. Is it a house again? Just a home again, is it now?
yes, that's what it is now. But before it was a home again now, it was a home downstairs. And then this, porcelain china, Prussian museum, China museum that was in the top of it. But they have moved to Arkansas. I don't know the name of the people.
McKee that had the tea room.
Yeah,
Is that what you had?
no.
Yeah, who had the tea room?
Mom King, and she had Major Price.
Had the restaurant?
That drove for her as a chauffeur and.
Very popular.
Yeah, yeah.
They had a restaurant in Worcester. And they split out
Yeah.
there. She had
Yeah.
here and built the tea
Black
room.
man
I bought the
bought
property and made it
daughter or
lovely tea
niece
room.
or
It was
somebody.
very
And
nice.
she went to school and that was
Was it?
yeah. What was, and good food. What was her name? Now, I know it just as good as I know my own, but I can't think of it right now. She was a couple of years older than I am.
What's she telling me?
Girl that went to school.
I can't think of it
And they lived down there, side of the railroad, where,
Such a big house.
oh, Mrs. Titus lived there. The right side of the jail.
I've been
The
there.
right side of the jail.
Is that a funny name like that?
No,
Well, how long has it been since this building here was ever a hotel?
it's always been a hotel.
Yeah, but, I mean,
So now-
when,
Is it now?
This,
it's not a hotel now.
here,
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
My grandfather, Colonel Dowd, had this place in, I think, in the 1860s. 2 years, he ran a coach, it was like a coach house, and it was a stagecoach, yeah, but they ran from Worcester to Cleveland. And I have a plaque, if the museum would like that,
We love that.
he only had it for 2 years, but anyway, we're proud of it. That's interesting.
But how,
I
when
read
did they,
it was a
when did they
stagecoach
stop
style.
using it as a hotel?
Well,
Is
my
it
dad
been-
did.
it was after,
Not now.
it was the Myers, and because there were rooms,
Yeah.
boarding house.
Yeah.
There were rooms here during World War II.
Oh, long after that.
And,
Myers had roomers come here and stay. Ed Freeman lived here.
well, and then they had convenient apartments because efficiencies that they had upstairs. I can't think of,
Mrs. Landis lived there for a while.
did she?
And Freeman?
Yeah, yeah. Well, who took it over after your granddad? Yeah, that I don't know. Well, I can remember when I was in grade school, the felon bonds. That was
Yeah,
for
she
a
was in
while.
our class at school.
Yeah, right, felon bonds.
Mary Phillips.
I used to stay all night with you like Yes, that was after the time. Yeah.
It's for sale. The owner's bed and breakfast. Yeah. The closest town. Yeah. It's in North.
That's right.
That's fine.
It's all right. Be all right with me.
Is there anyone here, Faye wanted to know, is there anyone here who stayed at the inn? Is there anyone who ever had a room? Your mother did?
I had a long apartment after that. We rented it out to went to school all 12 years. That was, say, about 1945.
What was her name? Was her name?
Landis.
I wonder which room was the bridal suite?
In front of the Chambers home is now the new vet in town. What was that building used for? I had a great aunt who swears that she used to come out here and get well water out at that building. It's the vet, Todd Smith's veterinary in front of the Chambers.
Oh, that's a new chamber.
It's Cook.
Or Cook, rather.
Oh,
The Chambers
Was
place.
it over our house or was
No, there
it?
used to be
Chambers
an
house,
old,
the other one?
there was a
Building
cement
was
block
separate
building
before.
there.
Yeah, that cement
But
block
that's
building.
new, that's not old.
Oh, yeah,
That's modern
about
time, isn't it?
15,
Yeah.
20 years ago. Like it was open because it was empty.
That's
She
over
swears
about
that
25 years.
she used to come down to Seville because there was a spring well down here somewhere. Anybody know of a well house where people used to come and stop and get water?
Well,
Driving
now,
through.
there was supposed to have been an artesian well. Well, now, some of you old timers will know this. Right between where I used to live and Myrtle Ziegler's. And then it was covered up or something or other, but there was a well there.
There's one
But
someplace
there was no
around
house
there,
with
no
it.
house. But not as far
That's
as
on
8 year 3 years.
But that's quite a ways from
That's
here.
Yeah.
162,
Well, at least
42.
you had the right route.
Yeah.
There is an artesian well up by Kaufman's old lake up there. Used to fill that lake all the time. I think it still runs.
Well, now, that would be closer to it, but I know that there was an artesian side. Well, it's
We're Dr. Avery. We're in our three.
Oh, there is a park.
Did they, that's what made that big hole, and the swimming pool,
Yeah.
they closed the swimming pool up, and he used to, right, used to irrigate this to make it look like that. Thank you.
Thanks for asking about some of these old buildings. If you remember what I said when I first stood up about, you know, the society and preserving legacies that have been left, I was hoping that some people would think back and remember that we've lost quite a bit in town. Progress is all around us, and to take one building and replace it with a newer one is not unusual. We've seen it all over. But it's the idea that we have to try to remember some of these places. We do have them preserved in photographs in our memories, and we want to try to bring those out and let people who, newcomers to town like Stevenses and ourselves, know what was where and who was who in town. We thought by asking about some of the older buildings in town, we could maybe incite a few memories to be brought back for some people, and maybe a little disagreement about what building was where or what it was used for. Is there anyone here who has any reminiscences or anything else about the town the way it was that they'd like to bring up that we can pass on to people who come through? We've gotten people from all over the country and Canada. We've had them from Australia visit us, and you know, anything that we can tell them about the town, I think that's important. Is there anyone who has anything about?
Well, I think they should know too, maybe some of the people here don't know what we do for the school. Some of these people that every year, now the last 2 years, or is it 3, I don't remember anymore. I go down to the school, and it's one boy, great aunts or something or other, Nina Suggett and Zula Nash. And they had a lot of history and stuff. Doctor, did you have any of them?
I had Zilla Nash, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other one too, and they finally lived in Wadwood. I think that's where they expired over there.
Well, I don't remember how they came about, but I know they didn't have electric, and they used to buy batteries for a flashlight, and that's how they read, but they were well-read, two women. This Nina Suggett had never married, but this Zula Nash had married and lived in Cleveland, and then they came back and lived out east of town. And this boy had this book, or like a diary, and he was so dumbfounded that I knew these people. Well, you know, a fifth grader, they just, anybody that's 10 years older than they are, why, they think they're ancient. But I was real surprised when they brought this diary in, and I read a little bit of it, but he didn't want to leave it. He didn't want to leave it, so I didn't get to see
Probably
much.
a family's
Right across
possession.
Ernie Cohn's farm.
Yeah.
To back up Katie, we do get people coming through the museum from town because their children have seen it. And they've come home all excited about going through the museum and talking about the giant statues and seeing the pictures in the alumni room up there, and they drag their parents back. And sometimes parents are a little bit shocked to come in. They really are a little hesitant about coming in, but after they're in, they maybe see the town a different way. I think a lot of people are becoming aware of where we are and how we can be found, if you will.
Well, one little boy said to his mother in church one Sunday, he said, "Mother, that's the lady that was at the museum." He says, "Don't we have some old stuff we could give them?"
I have a question to ask some of you people. Going back to what I remember years and years ago when I was a kid in a town called Macomb. My uncle happened to be the marshal of Macomb, and I recall seeing him. And he rode a big white horse, and he had a big star and a big hat and carried a great big gun. And I've noticed in some of the books, you don't hear too much of your sheriff or your marshal. What did you have as a policeman? Was it a marshal?
We were so good we didn't need it.
Oh, you didn't need any. Well, if you didn't need any, why'd you build that jail back up?
What happened to the robbers? Weren't there some robbers?
Well, now, there was some
They caught
robbers
them, but they never found the money.
that took the town marshal or Mr. Weaver and tied him up and put him up in the town hall. Now, that's in one of the histories. I remember talking about that.
Took care of the marshal.
And they called him a constable too. They had a constable here.
That's what they had.
And,
He was a J.
but didn't somebody rob the bank here?
Oh, Preston.
Didn't somebody rob the bank?
And they tied the constable up and put him up in the
That
town
was
hall.
the Stebbins bank, wasn't it?
Well, this bank down here has been robbed a number of times.
Yeah, Fred Bowers.
They caught the robbers when they were
Fred Bowers.
Yeah.
And Baker.
And McQuiston,
Paul Slacker was.
yeah, McQuiston,
And where's Neil Baker?
and Mr. Perry was,
Yeah.
Herman Perry.
And they were sitting there maybe drunk or something, I don't know what. But anyway.
Did he walk around or did he go
Yeah, they
right
walked.
there?
They walked. Yes, didn't they?
Ed McQuiston.
Didn't they just walk?
But anyway, they walked around.
Yeah, oh, they walked.
He got out to go question Right out past him.
We must have
Well, after the reorganization,
Old
we had a party, you know, after, yes.
PhD doctor,
After,
After the thing went busted and closed up.
well, you know, during the bank holiday.
Yeah,
Well, and then
I think
Stebbins
they
got
said
hit.
she heard a grunt in bed
that
and
was
that
when
was
he
it.
came in, huh?
Yeah,
Who was this?
but
Bill and Christian.
Oh, yes.
he got off before he died.
Oh, yeah.
Played golf that day.
Miller was president down there.
Yeah, well,
Married one of the daughters.
he married one of the daughters.
Uh-huh. Stebbins made it down there. Stebbins, one of Stebbins' daughters.
Great.
Building that we're in. At one time, I lived next door and I was going to high school then, so it was a while back. A gentleman by the name of George Wells owned the hotel here, and he had a sign out front checking dinners. Well, business wasn't all that good, but once in a while a car would stop and you'd see George heading for, he had a chicken yard out behind. You'd see him heading out there with a hatchet. I'm telling you, the chicken dinners were fresh.
Virgil, how long did he have to wait though?
Well, that was funny, a long, long time. We really tried the patience with people. Sometimes they drive off. Pick the thing, they always catch it first, then pick it.
Sitting there watching it. You just sitting there watching it.
We were laughing about it.
Take a
Still.
Nobody was in a hurry then.
England, we were told that it was built in 1980 or whether it was 80 years old when we moved in, which was about 40 years ago. And Deanna knows a little something about the people who lived before we lived in it. Family by the name of Dix lived in it, and Mrs. Dix lived there, and then the Englands lived there, and they were related to the Dixes later. And I think that you bought it from the England, or the Dixes about that time.
It was bought from an estate. I think there were a number of scattered.
It would have been the Dix estate.
Yeah, right.
At that.
That's why they wanted to get rid of it.
You know,
They wanted to get out of what they could.
the Dix property. Well, she was there asking how old it is. I might say that too, that where the First Federal Bank is now was an old house that, wasn't that a stagecoach? The Bostricks lived, Mrs. Bostrick lived there. And was that a stagecoach tavern at one time? There was something across the.
Was that the
front-
Temperance Hotel?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's another thing my grandfather had.
That's
See,
what I thought.
my grandfather was in his 70s when they had my father. So that's why this dates way back. I mean, in the 1850s and 60s. But yes, he ran a Temperance Hotel there.
And that was a stop, wasn't it, between Cleveland and Columbus and the stagecoach route?
Well, this was.
Yes, that's it. And,
This, not this building, but what was here before. I don't think this is the original building.
and then the second floor was,
I don't think so. I don't
Didn't the original
General
building
Hall.
burn at one time?
Probably.
Did they have a fire here originally?
This room is not the
And then this was
Oh, no, no. the-
rebuilt, they used the
This
foundation
room
or
up here
something?
is- Yeah, not this.
I know the building, a couple of photographs that we have, you can see the railroad tracks beside one building that, you know, obviously is the same location, but it's not this building. This has got a date on the outside of, what, 1898 or something on it? Right on the cut corner of it, there's a date on the building. If anybody looks during the daytime, I've forgotten what it is now. So this is not the original building here. This has been changed over the years, I know that.
It was probably a log cabin.
It may well have been.
One of my grandfathers was born in a log cabin up north, of town. And that's been moved. Jane Crawford's the last one that lived in the house up there that was built on the same location as the log cabin. Then that house was moved.
Is that right where the Route 76, that's right where Route 76 goes through?
They had it moved.
The Wonko family lived in that house for a while.
They- Yeah, we did Jane Crawford there, but it buried back.
I don't know if there's anybody here that isn't aware that Washington Irving is supposed to have stopped here at this hotel.
That's the way they fired their stove.
The one who named the town, suggested the name of the town. They do tell that
What was
story.
that story about pickle jars in the tracks?
Well, there used to be a picket fence out here by the railroad track when I came to town yet. And the story is that they were, Taylors lived there, and they used to put 4 jars of pine jars about every 6 or 8 pickets. And the bums that ride the railroad track would throw lumps of coal at these jars to see if they could hit them. And so that's the way they got their coal to heat the house with. Then some of them weren't too good. They were like other people. I heard they bum a ride on the way down, and then they'd get a train down at Sterling, and then they would throw coal off all the way up to Seville. Then they'd take their bag and ride all the way back down, and start picking the coal up in a bag, and trying to get back to Seville, they'd have a bag full. Enough to heat the house for a week. Sure, that would
Are there other stories anyone would like to share with us?
That Mary Ann Bender wrote, he had it last, he got it from me, but whether he returned that or not, and it tells about the Hulberts, and it tells about the Underground Railroad. And they came from Smithville to Seville, and then to Lodi, and then to Wellington. And those were the stops.
Was the Halbert house a stop?
Yes, yes.
Can you know, would you locate the Halbert place where they stopped?
Well,
Which
where
Halbert?
Mary Ann Bender lives.
It's out Seville Road.
Yeah, yeah. That, well, there was a number of Hulbert houses, but that was the one that had,
You know where my.
the slave
One this side.
station to it.
Oh, yes, didn't we go down there and see in the basement?
Yes.
What did we see? We saw them, the place was really hid the place.
Yeah.
But the Historical Society was very tour of that house.
Yeah.
And when we there that night,
That was written
Is
up.
that the one on the south side?
If you go forward, going out, go around the other.
Well, now,
They were moved,
they wrote a book.
They moved there 15 years, just right there.
Yeah. The one that didn't use it, trying to go out.
But Paul Blake had a class.
And Mike's, the
But I know.
one that catacomb.
Jerry, do you have any of these?
What do you say, Mike? I'm trying to think of a house
They used to use at the
beyond the sign.
No.
Well, they come over and see what cause I just got them recently. Were you gonna say something?
Were you gonna say
Well,
something?
I was just going to, this gentleman over here was asking about the brick house up there, that was the restaurant and all. I was told as a child, and I don't know whether it's true or not, that was one of the stations of the Underground Railroad.
Well, they said that little cupola on top was a lookout.
I heard this, it's true or not. A little before my time.
Is there any history to the house you live in?
Generations, yes. We're the third, I guess.
Third generation.
Yeah, where my grandfather owned it.
we don't know, we can't find any papers on it, because that's when they had the fire in the Medina County. And they lost all of the fire, the papers, were destroyed by the fire, but we know that it was at least 150. Well, we went back.
There was, 1865, I think, was a big fire in Medina that burned all the records. If you're trying to trace the house, the age, one of the ways is to see when the value of the taxes changed on the property. But when that record is lost, then that method of finding out is not very successful.
Geraldine, what's the dates of the porcelain factory?
We came here in
Yes, they made a nice trip for the
second grade. Second grade. Second grade.
19 second grade. You were 19 in the second grade. That's good.
60 years. We've had our 50th, and it'll be our 60th. So it's back at least 58 years.
68 years, because it came in the second grade. So, oh boy, we came in 1920.
Well, then when was it shut up?
About 45, 1945, over there sometime.
I can remember seeing these hands that they made for other companies to make rubber gloves. But, and your dad and Mr. Malloy
They
and
don't know if they're
Mr.
gonna do it.
Lowry.
Mr. Kreiner.
Oh, I forgot about Kreiner Baker.
Mary Baker.
These things that are loaned, like you were asking, Jerry, if they had any hands, if they're loaned to the museum, they're not a contribution. They can be loaned and returned to the family at some time if they request it. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch
If
all.
you're loaning something, if you're contributing something to the museum, an old, that's been in the family, does that go in as a full contribution, or can it be returned to the family at some later date if they want it?
All right, what we've done is we've tried to avoid some of the loans,
Oh,
only because that involves some paperwork, and there'd be a minor, I was told this,